Should you start your memorization from Surah al-Baqarah or should you start from Surah al-Naas? Should you start from the front or should you start from the back? This is a question which someone was asking in the comments, and it's actually a common question for people who are doing hifdh or starting their journey on hifdh al-Quran. And this is something which isn't a hard and fast rule. And what we have seen from the madaris and the general experience of the people who are memorizing the Quran is that you will always start by memorizing Juz Amma before. And the reason for that is, of course, these surahs are short and it's easy to memorize shorter surahs, and it gives you more confidence, because if you complete the memorization of shorter surahs and you complete all of Juz Amma, then you get a really boost and it gives you confidence that yes, I can do this. So there's no actual rule regarding to where to memorize from. However, starting from the back and Juz Amma specifically is highly recommended. Now, of course, if you're an adult and you're memorizing the Quran for yourself without being in any program but having a teacher, it is really your choice where you want to memorize from. And what I would advise is that you start from the back. So you start from Surah al-Nas and you go all the way up to Surah al-Dukhan, which is in the end of the 25th juz of the Quran, which means that you will end up completing 30th juz, 29th juz, 28th juz, 27th juz, 26th juz completely, and about the last quarter of the 25th juz, which means that you would memorize about 5 1/4 juz, and you would have memorized a lot of the short surahs of the Quran. What do I classify as short surahs of the Quran? I classify any surah which is 4 pages or less. So if you look at Surah al-Dukhan, it's 3 pages. For example, a surah that comes thereafter, Surah al-Ahqaf maybe, that's 4 pages. It's 4 and a little bit, there's a few lines on the other 5th page, but generally it's a 4-page surah. So it gives you a big confidence boost. And the main thing as an adult, of course, is that when you stand up for salah, then you can use these surahs in your salah. So for example, in Fajr, where it's a longer salah, you can easily recite 2 or 3 pages in the first rakat and a 1 page in the last rakat. Obviously, if you're an imam, then it's not recommended that you do that because that's too long. But if you're reading by yourself, maybe you're a female and of course you're not going to the masjid to read Fajr, you're reading at home, and let's say for example, you're reading by yourself, then as a woman you can read those 4-page surahs in your Fajr salah, because your husband's obviously gone off to the masjid and reading in the masjid. So that's a real boost. And of course, there's a couple of methodologies here. Is that once you've done, from al-Nas to al-Dukhan or al-Dukhan to al-Nas, whichever way you want to look at it, you can go to the front. You can go to Surah al-Baqarah. Surah al-Baqarah is actually a really easy surah to memorize. It is long, of course. It's, the longest surah of the Quran. However, it's actually a very easy surah. The words are simple. It's a famous surah in terms of, people do listen to Surah al-Baqarah. It's recited a lot, so therefore it is quite easy to memorize, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made that easy. So then you could start from Surah al-Baqarah, or as an adult, for example, you could look for other surahs which you're interested in. You're memorizing the Quran as an adult. You're memorizing it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're not a child in a program. Now, of course, if you are a child in a program, then you follow the tertib, the way that your teachers have told you need to memorize. But if you're an adult, let's say, for example, you memorize from al-Nas to al-Dukhan. Then the next one that you want to memorize maybe is Surah al-Luqman, because Surah al-Luqman is also 4 pages. And then after Surah al-Luqman, you have Surah al-Sajda. So Surah al-Sajda is 3 pages. So then in the middle of the Quran, you've got this 4-page surah, and you've got this 3-page surah, and you memorize that. And then thereafter, you might think, okay, I want to memorize Surah Yasin, for example. Surah Yasin is about 5 to 6 pages. I can't remember exactly. It's about 5 to 6 pages. And you can memorize Surah Yasin. Then you can be like, okay, on Fridays I'm going to read Surah Al-Kahf. So then you memorize Surah Al-Kahf, which is around about 10 pages. And then therefore you know that in your salah, you can use from Surah Qaf or Surah Luqman, Surah Sajda, from Surah Qaf to the end of the Quran. And then you'll be like, okay, every so often I want to recite Surah Yasin at night, for example, or maybe when someone is on their deathbed, it's recommended to recite Surah Yasin then you can memorize it off memory. And for example, on Fridays you want to memorize, you want to read Surah Al-Kahf, so then of course on Fridays you can read Surah Al-Kahf. And then you can be like, okay, from Ad-Dukhan to the end, I've done a few surahs in the middle, let me go to Surah al-Baqarah thereafter. Or, for example, you could go and, after you've done Surah al-Dukhan, you can go straight to Surah al-Baqarah. There's no hard and fast rules. So the main thing is that you get your motivation, and you get that by the completion of surahs. And that's why we do recommend that you start from the end. My students who are memorizing the Quran, then I get them to do some from the end, and then we do move straight to Surah al-Baqarah. And that's because they're children, and they don't have the same motivations as an adult to memorize the Quran. So as an adult, of course, your motivations are to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, number one, and of course for yourself in terms of reading it in salah, reading it for yourself. And it's quite easy to keep 5 juz in your mind, by the way. So it's really easy to keep 5 juz, just as you can pull it by yourself at any time. So from Ad-Dukhan to the end, you can keep it in your memory just with having a very short regimen of revision, although you should be revising all the time, of course. So I hope that answers the question. Where should I start? Should I start from the front or should I start from the back? Again, it's your choice, but starting from al-Naas to Ad-Dukhan is really good because you can use it in your salah. And then thereafter, it's your choice. Do you want to move to Surah al-Baqarah, or do you want to memorize those surahs which interest you? Surah al-Nur, for example, is recommended too. It's just one of those surahs which has a lot of ahkam in it. Assalamu alaikum, and I'll see you in the next video.